So right now you're Ryan Condron from Lumerin.
Yep.
And so we're going to kind of run through what you've got going, what you're building right now, the value proposition that you've got for miners, and just let's jump into what you're doing.
Yeah. So we've been building out a protocol called Lumerin. You can find it at lumerin.io. The idea of it is decentralized data routing, and my background is in mining and working with hash rate and different miners. So our first stop with the Lumerin protocol is a decentralized hash rate marketplace. So buying and selling hash rate in a decentralized fashion globally. So you don't need to trust the person you're buying from. You don't have to trust the person you're selling to. It's truly decentralized Bitcoin and consensus through selling the hash power through a marketplace.
So you have crossed the threshold of Bitcoin and Ethereum. So you're not maxi for either. You're just
is
that a little bit anathema? Right?
You know, it's funny because we'll talk to like Bitcoin maximalists and we'll like mention that we have an ERC20 token, and they're like, they get really worked up.
The brain just shuts down.
You know, we're gonna say, but you control Bitcoin hash rate with it, and they're like, wait, they get so emotionally confused sometimes because it's like, wait, there's a Bitcoin hash rate marketplace on Ethereum that's controlling real hash rate, so you're actually mining Bitcoin, but then it's all controlled through an ERC20 token. It's mixing the ecosystems, and it's actually good for the decentralization of the Bitcoin network. So we get mixed emotions from the maxis.
Yeah, no, the maxis. Yeah, you can't mix the two of those. It's oil and water.
No.
For some of them, right?
Yeah.
So now, how do you make sure that there's that hash rate matches over with what's being sold? So you've got the ERC20 token that you've created.
Yep.
And that applies to a certain amount of hash rate. How does someone verify that that's the amount of hash rate that's actually being done?
So the ERC20 token acts as like a currency for the ecosystem.
Okay.
So a certain amount of Lumerin token will equal a certain amount of hash rate on the marketplace. And then what it really looks like as far as the setup is a miner will have tens of thousands of devices inside their facility. They will run a Lumerin node inside their facility. They will point all their devices to the Lumerin node, and the Lumerin node will actually forward all their hash rate onto whatever their default mining pool is. So it's just really a pass-through.
Okay.
Then the miner will submit contracts to the Lumerin marketplace, basically 100 terahashes for sale over the next 24 hours for a certain amount of price. So now they'll generate all these contracts for sale. Now anyone anywhere in the world can buy one of those contracts, and the Lumerin node running in the mining facility will automatically route off that much hash rate over the next 24 hours or whatever the time period of the contract is in order to fulfill the contract. So it's literally the seller has a routing node and the buyer has a routing node, and we're literally doing peer-to-peer hash rate transfer. So it is a truly decentralized commodity that's being truly delivered from seller to buyer in real time.
So if someone's looking for a hash rate, if they're looking, they can convert that over to Bitcoin.
Yeah.
Into their specific wallet that they want to have.
Yeah.
And so centralized finance will not be the only on-ramp into...
No, so here's the crazy thing is, because Lumerin is currently on Ethereum, so it's an ERC20 token currently. Eventually, we're going to be moving it all into our own protocol, our own blockchain. But currently, it's on Ethereum. So you can take any Ethereum stablecoin ERC20 token on Ethereum, convert it to Lumerin, buy hash rate on the marketplace, and then mine Bitcoin with it. So you literally have a fully decentralized on-ramp into Bitcoin from Ethereum. So
Bitcoin maxis will like that.
Oh yeah. They'll like that. But the important thing to note is you're never touching a centralized exchange. You're never exposing your identity in any way. It's completely anonymous. There's no KYC, AML. It's literally the most decentralized, anonymous, free way of doing a conversion from one network to another is through hash rate.
And so the verification on the hash rate that's getting siphoned over, that's all. It's all
the buyer's node that they run. So if you as a buyer are running a node, you're receiving hash rate from the seller directly to the node on your computer, and then that gets forwarded to your mining pool. So you're actually controlling the hash rate in real time. And then your node is doing the validation. It's looking at the hash rate coming in, and it's checking the shares, and it's making sure that the seller is sending you what you're paying for. And if at any point the seller is not fulfilling their end of the bargain, then you can pull the ripcord, cancel the contract, and return the money that's left in the contract.
Wow.
Yeah.
Are you seeing applications beyond someone just wanting to get on board here? What applications are you seeing here?
Oh, okay. So, I mean, this is a deep rabbit hole now. That's a dangerous question.
I want to toss this up here. Like, there's so many applications I can see on the finance. Like, it's not like kind of an option.
So, just on the Bitcoin mining side, right? We have this idea of it's around a paper that I wrote several years ago called the Decentralization of Control. So, right now you can have a facility in Texas that has 100,000 devices in it, and the owner of that facility is in control of 100,000 devices, right? But now we can take 100,000 devices, put them into 100,000 contracts on the marketplace, and now technically have 100,000 different people around the world controlling those devices. So now you have more decision makers in the process, and they're going to be setting the hash rate to different pools, more block producers, and that's greater decentralization in the Bitcoin space. So that's one benefit of the future of this. The second benefit to the future of this is this idea of a real-time digital commodity. So this idea, just like you have a barrel of oil, we can have a petahash of Bitcoin hash rate that's real-time exchanged, and now we have a fully anonymous global marketplace for the buying and selling that it never closes, it's always up, and it's fully decentralized. So.
And where are you seeing right now as far as the hash rate? Where is that? You know these numbers, right?
Yeah.
Where it's consolidated.
Texas. This is all Texas. How do you think we're talking here now?
No. It's like as far as where the hash rate's going right now. The pools.
Oh,
the pool is fairly centralized.
This is
right?
So where the miners are located, it's so the side of the miners, it's always around three common things. It's cheap electricity is the biggest. People are always looking for cheap electricity, stable infrastructure, and then a favorable government, right? Wherever in the world you find a combination of those three things, you're going to have mining, right? So Texas, basically, right? So that's on the seller side. On the buyer side, the people that are actually receiving the hash rate right now, and this is the scary thing, is the mining pools, right? So that there's 4 top mining pools in the world right now. Those 4 top mining pools are responsible for mining over 90% of the blocks on the Bitcoin network, okay? So miners don't actually mine blocks. Miners sell their hash rate to a mining pool that mines blocks.
I think that's something that many people don't quite understand.
Yeah, it's a little nuanced when you actually look under the covers on how all this works. So you have 4 mining pools creating over 90% of the blocks, okay? Now, if we dive in a little bit further, you'll find out that top 2 mining pools, Foundry and Antpool, mine over 75% of the blocks. That means there are 2 entities in this world that mine over 75% of the Bitcoin blocks, okay?
Is that risk?
That's incredible risk. That's like if I said there were 2 banks in the world and all the transactions go through one of those 2 banks.
So where's the majority of the risk there?
A lot in censorship.
Okay.
Right. So there's
Is it an existing censorship or a potential censorship?
Potential censorship. It's just we're looking at consolidation of hash rate and where the blocks are created, how the transactions get ordered, how the transactions get mined into blocks. A lot of this is concern, right? So with Bitcoin, it used to be said 1 hash equals 1 vote, right? And that used to be the mantra, and we would mine with CPUs, and then we figured out how to mine with GPUs, and then we started building FPGAs and more specialized hardware, and then we started doing ASICs, and we started accumulating more specialized hardware, so the average Joe was not able to mine anymore unless they had specialized hardware, okay? So the individual that wants to be involved in the Bitcoin network, unless they have specialized hardware and run a full node and mine against the network and vote with their hash rate, then they don't really have a say in the network.
Right.
So we want to provide decentralized access to hash rate without having access to specialized hardware and allow people to vote with their hash rate again. And that's how we get away from having 2 block producers in the world.
And would you say that that's your objective with Lumerin is increasing that decentralization on that hash rate?
That's one.
What is your stated mission objective for the company? And
so the initial mission objective with Lumerin is to better decentralize Bitcoin.
Okay.
Right. So that's really the mission: is get more people involved in the ecosystem, create better decentralization in the space, give people the opportunity to have control of hash rate, and really earn Bitcoin without having to go through KYC, AML, give up their their personal information in order to acquire a digital asset. We really believe in anonymity. We believe in freedom. We believe that anyone should be able to access Bitcoin and be involved in the Bitcoin space without having to go through a centralized system. And that's where we think Lumerin...
Without having to send a facial scan over to a centralized entity.
Exactly. I mean, you can't even go to a Bitcoin ATM anymore without like scanning your fingerprint, doing a retinal scan, like scan your...
Right, and like a blood prick, I like your finger, so you have your DNA.
Yeah. Right? So it's... the freedom in the space has shifted over the years. And, we really still believe in that core belief that Bitcoin is a currency of the people, isn't controlled by any single government or institution, and it needs to be freely accessible by everybody.
Would you see that over the year, you've been in the space since 2012? 2012. So,
yeah.
So very early on, just like Marshall, been around forever.
Yeah.
So would you say that the initial cypherpunk guys that were initially in the space, do you see any that are true Bitcoin maxis where they're just Bitcoin only and don't appreciate any other aspects of decentralization?
There are a few, but I almost feel like they just took that stance just to be salty and not necessarily because
it's a marketing angle. We were talking about earlier, like the marketing of...
Yeah, exactly.
Like the personal brand built around it.
When anyone that's been in the ecosystem for long enough will recognize that not one chain is going to do it all, right? And we could say that, Bitcoin can be the security route, Bitcoin can be the financial route, and that's fine, but everyone eventually agrees that second layer systems, having other side chains, other protocols for different types of uses, different types of specialized functions is very, very much needed. So you can't expect one chain to be everything just because the amount of data and throughput for that chain it's not even practical. So
what do you think is we should do a better job as an industry collaborating? How do you think that both the Bitcoin maxi side, the miners, we're looking on the policy side, Texas Blockchain Council, we're focused on the policy side, what can be enacted and how to coordinate better. But we get a lot of pushback on the Bitcoin mining side of, hey, you're trying to help out other people. And I think our stance has been we're maximum decentralization and Bitcoin first, but there's a use case across the board. And so you do have to,
oh man, if we go,
what can we do better to work together rather than niche out and we should be fighting Elizabeth Warren, it feels like. Rather than each other.
So if I rewind back to like 2012 when I first got into space, 2013, the crypto ecosystem or the Bitcoin ecosystem online was one of the most venomous ecosystems like I had ever encountered. Right?
There was some of those old old posts.
Oh, the Bitcoin Talk forum, it was just like a cesspool, and you would just get eaten alive, and it was crazy. But what it did, it created a lot of contention. It created a lot of like venom in the space, but it created a lot of ambition and passion. And it created a lot of people saying, oh, I could do this better, I could do that better, or, oh, you're doing that wrong. That contention actually created a lot of amazing projects out of that. So I wouldn't say like us not all being on the same page is necessarily bad for the ecosystem, but what I can
is that dialogue to trying to
I mean, it's the fire that refines, and it has done really, really well for Bitcoin. What I would say what we can do better is, I mean, this is a common answer. I imagine you've heard it a lot, is better education, better communication of like what we're actually doing. I can't tell you how many conversations I get into where it almost starts like Bitcoin's boiling the ocean. It's terrible for the environment. You're using all this electricity. And I get into so many of those conversations, and I always have to go through the same thing of, okay, let's talk about how electricity is produced. Let's talk about how electricity is consumed. Let's talk about how electricity is transmitted. Okay, once we understand the basics, like the basic physics of how electricity actually works.
Does it magically go from West Texas to Dallas?
It doesn't magically just get transported. It does, and so there's so much misunderstanding of electricity. There's so much misunderstanding of energy in general. Right. The reality is this world does not have a minimal amount of energy in it. We don't have a limitation on how much energy we have, and people are talking about if we consume electricity, it's bad for the environment, as though we're using up some finite resource, and it's just not true.
Right.
So once you start debunking a lot of these early myths, then you start building on, okay, well, what does Bitcoin do? What problems does Bitcoin solve?
So you're saying people need to understand physics 101.
Oh, I know, right? We go all the way back to
creators.
We go all the way back to the basics,
Right.
But what can we do better in the Bitcoin ecosystem? What can we all work together is having a common message and just a common way of like answering these questions. For example, Bitcoin mining is really the only way a renewable energy grid will work at scale, right?
Yep.
That is a true statement. Right now, there is no other, system.
Well, let me. I agree with
that
you.
will do that.
Sorry,
Yeah.
I agree with you. Let me push back on something
Yeah.
that would push back against that. Why do you say that? Why?
Yeah. Well, it comes down to the fact that, for example, here in this country, our electricity works on 60 hertz, right? That's the cycle of our electricity. If you have too much amperage going onto the grid, right, that 60 hertz cycle actually will go up. And if you don't have enough, that 60 hertz cycle will go down, right?
Yep.
Now, the tolerance of our grid is, I believe, within like 0.05 hertz, right? So that means if you have too much going on the grid or not enough going on the grid, you're going to have a fluctuation, and that's when you start having blackouts. That's when you start having electronics not work correctly because they are designed to work at 60 hertz.
Yep.
That's how our electronics are designed, okay? So now you have this idea that you have stability issues, okay? So what we end up doing in this country is we do what's load response or load following. So when someone turns on their AC units, or in the middle of the summer when a bunch of people flip on their AC units, the energy producers actually have to up the amount of electricity that they're producing because they have to keep that 60 hertz stability.
So that everybody can still use the grid.
Exactly. And they have a certain time window to respond to it, right? And if they don't respond fast enough, then it's bad news. If they respond too fast, then it's bad news. So they have to respond within a certain time window. So now you look at Bitcoin. Well, what does Bitcoin do? Bitcoin uses up as much electricity as possible for 100% of the time, right? So if you had an energy producer that can produce 1 gigawatt of electricity, and you had a mining facility that could consume 1 gigawatt of electricity, that is perfect balance, right?
Right.
They are both running at 100% capacity. Now, if a local city starts turning on AC units, they need electricity. So now two things can happen. Either the energy producer produces more electricity in order to fuel the need for AC units, or the Bitcoin mining facility turns off miners. Okay. Now, believe it or not, miners can actually turn on and off faster than a energy production facility is going to ramp up and ramp down. Okay. So we actually can do better load response with Bitcoin mining.
What is that? How quickly can it?
So we're talking, you unplug something, right? So how fast can you unplug? How fast
can you turn?
if you can electronically turn something off?
And now it seems with people are looking at it and you're able to do it. Set up software programs where it's just as it's needed, just instantaneously.
Exactly. So now that's a foundational understanding. Okay. Now let's go to a renewables grid. What is a renewables grid? It's solar, it's wind, it's hydro. Okay. Make the wind blow stronger when you need more electricity. You can't.
That doesn't work so well.
Make the sun shine brighter when you need more electricity.
Yeah.
You can't. So what do you have to do? You have to build a large enough solar array to produce enough electricity at peak demand, right? But now you have so much, you don't just turn off solar panels. When the sun is shining, the solar panel's making electricity, okay? So you need that electricity to go somewhere. If people aren't running their AC units in the middle of Palm Springs, and it's winter in the Palm Spring desert, no one's running their AC units, but you have this massive solar array. Where's that electricity going? Who's using it? Bitcoin mining. And now during the summer when everyone needs electricity, what doesn't need to be on? Bitcoin mining. So this is a natural balance, is having a energy consumer that is flexible enough to turn on or off their consumption when consumers on the grid need the electricity. And this is the perfect balance that we're finding right now.
So push you one more time.
Do it.
Push you one last time. All right. So I'm gonna play devil's advocate here.
Okay.
So having more miners on it, wouldn't that increase the price of energy because they're willing to bid higher for the energy prices. So now they
actually no, because so let's go to Kenya now. We're gonna switch from Palm Springs. We're gonna go to Kenya.
Not everything.
Okay? All right.
Not everything's built out.
No, exactly. So what happens when you're in Kenya in a really remote village and you have an electric generator, right? That's the power producer, and then you have 50 to 100 people in this village, right? The energy producer is going to produce power when the village is going to use it, okay? And if the village isn't using it, then the energy producer doesn't make any money.
Yep.
Okay? So the energy producer has to charge a lot for their electricity because they're only turning on and off this generator, ramping up and ramping down the generator periodically to meet the demand. And that's really expensive for them just to have hardware sitting there that's not really being used, or a production facility sitting there that's not being used. So they charge a lot for electricity, like upwards of 75 cents a kilowatt hour, sometimes more. Right?
So if people can't pay for it, then they just don't build they just don't have electricity.
Think about the economics of a city or a village that has really, really expensive electricity. When you're spending the majority of your income every month on your electric bill, you don't scale, right? So what we see in Kenya right now, and there's a group called Gridless.
We were talking to Marshall a little bit earlier on it.
So you guys already built, right? So then Marshall's shipping.
I'm making you do everything in one segment here on the electricity side.
You're welcome, Marshall. There you go. No, so essentially they ship miners over there. The miners are using electricity for 100% load 100% of the time, and then the miners turn on or off depending on if the village needs it or not. So now the energy producer is getting money for their product. The Bitcoin mined is paying the energy producer. In some cases, they're actually doing a revenue share with the local community, and now the local community actually gets cheaper electricity. And now you see things like someone in the community can now run their water pumps longer for their crops. Now their crops are stronger. Now they have more feed for their cattle. Now their cattle are fatter, and they get more money in the marketplace, right? This is like.
And then you take that to where that impacts the family, things that, you have your infant that now can eat more.
Exactly. Having cheap electricity for an ecosystem is like a foundational utility that creates a robust, strong economy. And it is the moment you remove this barrier of electricity and the cost of electricity, that's when you start seeing things flourish. So
that's, yeah. No, I made you put it all.
We like full circle here. So at the end of the day, at the end of the day, now they can run a Lumerin node and they can buy hash rate and mine for themselves.
Well, it seems like for miners, we were talking earlier with Matthew Schultz over at ClearSpark. We were talking about just kind of the models that they've built.
Yeah.
These miners, the miners that are more successful, they built really strong models on their hash rate when it's coming online. Yeah, the price of energy, what they're paying for it.
Oh, yeah.
And
the technology right now around demand response and knowing when to do curtailment, the price of electricity on the grid, and knowing when to power cycle your miners, like it's crazy. Like we're getting really, really good at this.
So would you see? So you're seeing it. You're projecting that miners would at some point be looking at. They would be. From a Lumerin, they're operating on Ethereum for Lumerin.
Yeah.
They're trying to do the hash rate. They're trying to hedge kind of their positions.
Yeah.
And so they're really,
at the end of the
working
day,
together.
Miners are a utility. They take electricity and they convert it to hash power, right? So hash power is a derivative of electricity. Now, the thing with electricity is it's very local.
Yep.
It's on a local grid. It's like, you could say it's like an analog commodity. And then if you can use this mining machine, this little toaster, to actually convert this local analog commodity into a digital global commodity of hash power, you can now sell it on a global market rather than a local market, right?
Yeah.
So once you have a commodity that opens from a local market to a global market, like the market dynamics are just completely different, and the profitability that you get for your end product is completely different.
So really, you can really hone down on what is the market wanting, not just worldwide.
What we're doing is we're opening up a global market for local energy producers to make more money, and that's really what Bitcoin has done,
which allows
proof of work. which allows cheap electricity, which allows greater economic growth in more rural areas, which creates better living for people.
That's great. How do people get a hold of you? How do you?
So you can check out Lumerin at lumerin.io. We're actually launching the marketplace on testnet tomorrow.
Okay.
So people that want to try it out, you can download the node, set it up, and hit the faucet and buy some hash rate.
So you'll be able to go on Ethereum, to get the testnet and faucet, and then get Bitcoin for it.
Yeah,
you direct it directly.
Yeah, directly, literally. So you're getting testnet tokens all through the wallet, buying real hash rate, sending that real hash rate to your mining pool account, and receiving real Bitcoin.
Excellent.
So we're giving away something for free. So Lumerin.io, check it out. Let us know what you think.
Awesome. Thanks, Ryan.
Cool.
Appreciate you stopping by.
Appreciate it.
Hey guys, thanks for watching. We had a great time here at Consensus. At the Texas Blockchain Council, we are striving to be the nexus between traditional industries, banking, finance, legal, energy, and the digital asset industry. So we want to help you get your brand in front of those kinds of companies with B2B opportunities. Reach out to us if that's of interest for membership or for sponsorship at the summit. Hope to see you there in November in Fort Worth. Thanks again. We look forward to seeing you at the summit.